Hello, friends. Happy Monday, and welcome to the Monday Morning Pep Talk. I'm Matthew Grande, one of the co-founders of Careerage, and in this week's Pep Talk, we're going to talk about being vulnerable. Before we jump in, the question I would love for you to consider this week is, where in your life are you not communicating a fear or an insecurity that you have? Where in your life or in your work are you afraid of something or insecure about something that you've not shared with someone else? When many of us think about being vulnerable, or more specifically in this case, sharing a fear or an insecurity, we often associate it with weakness. We fear that we may be judged because we're not strong enough or we're not capable enough. Or we fear that we're not going to be accepted kind of as we are or valued for sharing whatever our truth is. Here's the thing about vulnerability, though, if we choose to use it. I find it does three things exceptionally well. First, it's a great connector. Fears and insecurities are very common. Fear of loss, fear of ability, fear of failure. When we share them, it helps us connect with each other on a deeper and more meaningful level. It helps us actually share in our humanness. Secondly, it's a great test. It's a test to see if you're in a place or in a relationship that loves you for you, that values you for being you, and that accepts you just the way you are. And finally, it's a great motivator. When we are vulnerable and share our truth, the response we get either energizes us to build a deeper connection and commitment wherever we are, or it encourages us to seek out a new environment that is more welcoming of our true selves. So what does this look like in practice? One of the scenarios that I have lived and have heard very often is one in which we're afraid to speak up at work for fear of being fired. So for example, let's say you're in a situation where you're under an incredible amount of stress at work and you're afraid to ask for help. In these cases, you normally fear that if you ask for help, you will be considered incapable and therefore will most likely get fired. All of this just by asking for help. It sounds like a stretch, but this is where many people's minds, including my own, have gone before I've ever even had a conversation with someone. So what might being vulnerable look like in this moment? What if you might say to your manager, "Hey, I'm struggling to keep up with my workload and I need help. I'm also afraid that if I ask for help, that I may be deemed incompetent and fired. Could we talk about what your expectations are and what some of my needs are and see if we can find a way to get both of our needs met?" Yes, believe it or not, you can say all of these things to your manager. This is fully within your control and absolutely a conversation that you can have. Now let's talk about how it may play out. In scenario one, your manager acknowledges, yeah, you have too much on your plate. And they also acknowledge that they have some things that are important to them. You then have a productive conversation about where you can get the support you need to achieve the organization's priorities, or even get things taken off your plate completely so you can focus on a task at hand. And at the end, you get your balance restored in your life, and your manager gets what they need. Everyone wins. Now here's what it looks like when it goes the other way. And this is based on an actual story that I heard in the last week. I spoke with someone who very vulnerably voiced their concerns that their department, which was responsible for all of the organization's employees, was acting in a way that was contrary to their own policies. And unfortunately, the person who they shared this feedback with later in feedback in a performance review for that person said something along the lines of, "You just need to grow a thicker skin." There was no acknowledgement of this person's feelings. There was no ownership of the clearly contradictory behaviors in the organization. There was just judgment and dismissiveness. So what can we learn from this story? When your feelings or concerns are not acknowledged, or when you're marginalized or dismissed for speaking your truth, that person, and possibly that organization, is signaling to you that they don't accept you or value you for who you are. And you know what? That's okay. That's all the information you need to know that that place is not the kind of place that's going to meet your needs. And that knowledge can motivate you to find a more supportive, nurturing, and psychologically safe environment. It's the reason that I was on the phone with this person in the first place. They realized that they deserved something better, and they were asking for help to find whatever that next opportunity or organization might be for them. And now finally, let's quickly explore the worst case scenario, like where you're actually fired. What would you do? Would you fight to get your job back at the place that was not supportive of you and your truth? Or would you seek out an environment that was better aligned to your needs and values? Sometimes the manager or organization that lets you go in the face of your truth is just the motivation you need to find your people who will love you and accept you just as you are. So what can you do this week to be more vulnerable? Start by looking into an area of your life where you feel like you're struggling. And then ask yourself, hey, what might it look like to be vulnerable in this moment? Is it sharing a truth you have that you haven't shared yet? Is it setting a boundary that you're afraid to set? Or is it removing yourself from a relationship or situation completely that is not serving you? Next, feel through the possible scenarios of that vulnerability. How will I feel if I'm seen? How will I feel if I'm judged or dismissed? And in either case, what might I do about it? And once you've felt through those scenarios and find your peace with whatever the outcome may be, have the courage to be vulnerable with that person or in that situation. And take note how it feels in your body. Do you feel a shift even by just stating your truth out loud, regardless of what the outcome is? As always, please try this out and let us know how it goes. If you need support as you're doing this work, please do not hesitate to reach out. And remember, we love you just as you are. We believe in you, and we will always be here for you. Take care of yourselves and one another, friends, and we'll talk to you again soon.